Hi, my name is Will Jackson, and this is my presentation on the Audit Export module, bringing clarity to complex Drupal sites. A little bit about me. I am a senior solutions architect at Pantheon Systems. I work with our Next.js product in Drupal. Prior to Pantheon, I worked for a number of Drupal agencies. I've been working in I'd worked in the Drupal agency, specifically the Drupal support space, for over the past 15 years. I've been working with Drupal for about 20. So I've spent a lot of time working with sites, built a lot of sites, and inherited a lot of sites. So working with projects that necessarily build or have much visibility into how it was built, something I have quite a bit of experience with. Beyond that, I'm just passionate about building tools, software, things that allow folks to better manage their websites, their technology, and just some of the properties that they use. So, talking about some of the challenges with site audits. I feel like every agency that I've worked at, we've always had some form of site audit. It's when a site comes in, you need to be able to understand how complex it is, how it's built, what modules are being used, how much custom code is being used. Part of this too is coming from the Drupal 7 days. So back in the Drupal 7 days, I don't know if a lot of people have had a lot of experience with Drupal 7, but there was this one, and this is one example. There's lots of them. But the features module. The features module was great. It's kind of like a precursor for how the modern Drupal handles configuration. So being able to export your configuration into code and be able to deliver that to different environments. The features module was like Drupal 7's version of that. Wasn't nearly as mature as it is now. And one of the things that it did was it would just create custom modules. And what we found is that a lot of times people would put custom code in these feature modules to further extend it. And sometimes would just lead to a lot of custom functionality being overlooked during part of the audit process. But there's a lot of these little gotchas or things that you need to look out for when auditing older versions of Drupal. Another example is there are a lot of ways to manage displays. So there's display suite, there's the context module, there's the Drupal core display modes. All are fantastic and do a really good job of what they're intended for, but there's a lot of overlap. And being able to quickly understand, about a site, it's using the context module, it's not using the context module, it's got display suite, it's got a ton of custom display modes. Being able to get some information about that in a very quick way is very beneficial. Talking about budget, so I just rambled on a couple different use cases, and there's so many more. So as these challenges that you run into surmount or build up, it just takes a lot of time. It takes time to go through and audit that. How long does an audit take? Well, it really depends on the site. You might get lucky, and it might be a really simple site. It might not take hardly any time at all. It might be a really complex site, and it might take you every bit of 50, 60, maybe 100 hours. It depends on what the time is. It's really hard to estimate what that would be, what that would take. And what this module aims to do is to at least standardize a portion of that, some of that. Still no replacement for the manual work that goes into looking and reviewing everything, but it's a good place to start. And again, small versus big sites, I mentioned that, but one of the things that we typically do with these documents or these audits is that we would have a deliverable. And usually it's in the form of a document, but you would deliver it back to your clients or the customer, and also save it internally. So if somebody new is coming onto a project, they can go refer to the documentation and see how the site's being built, what modules are being used. But the problem with that, the challenge with that is that it easily becomes outdated, because if the site comes in, you start working on it for 6 months, what that documentation, that snapshot of that documentation is accurate-ish, but it's not up to date. And this module aims to hopefully fix that too. So talking a little bit about Audit Export. It's a standard Drupal module. You install it with Composer, you install it the normal way. I'll show you the module here in just a moment. I have the next slide, a demo slide where we'll look at the project page. But it comes pre-packaged with 9 reports. These 9 reports are fairly generic as far as the information that it provides. User roles, the user permissions that are assigned to the roles. If you think of the user permissions page that comes out of the box with Drupal, it's great. It's very granular. It's also very dense and a lot of repeating things that are over, you're seeing it over and over and over again, and it just makes it hard to consume. It takes a lot of that data, cleans it up, and provides it in a cleaner way. We'll see those reports in a minute. Entity fields. So what entities you have, what fields are on these entities. Of the fields, what modules are providing the fields? Is this a core field? Is this like a text field? Is this, ran into this more on Drupal 7, but you would have contribute a module that you would install. It adds some custom fields that you're able to use. And then you want to identify, well, what contrib modules are being used? How are they being used? Do we need to get this contrib module for Drupal 11, Drupal 10, whatever version you're moving to? Is this even compatible? If it's not compatible, what do we do with it? Where is the data? Where is it saved? It could be a custom field that's being provided by a custom module entirely. But being able to quickly identify that in one place is really helpful. And being able to click a button and it tell you where all your fields are coming from is useful. It works with Drush, so you can, there's Drush commands, you can review the reports, you can see the reports. We'll take a look at the Drush commands and how they work, but full operation from Drush, so being able to see your reports, run your reports, get the data for the reports, export the data to CSV, get that local, that's there, through the Drush integration. Tool API, this is a newer one. So there's the tool API that comes from the tool module at Drupal. And what the tool API allows us to do is similar to those like Drush commands where you're able to pull the data out. It allows me to expose those endpoints and functions as tools that the tool API can then use. And then if you're using a module like MCP or some of the AI suite, it allows you to use those tools that this module makes available. So you can connect it with Claude or ChatGPT, and you can get very finite or very granular field data or user data, basically information about your site, that audit information. There's a lot of it in there, and it just makes it to where the data is accurate. It doesn't have to. You don't have to go build a custom skill for this is how I look up field data. It doesn't have to infer that on its own. Here are the fields. There's no worry about hallucinations because this is coming straight from the APIs within Drupal, and it provides it in a way that is static for that context and for that conversation. So you can always revert back to it. You can always resort back to it, review that, and you don't have to worry about the data drifting. You still need AI. You still need to look at it, verify everything, through human verification, or strongly recommended that you do. But from what I've seen, it definitely lowers the inaccuracy and the hallucinations when it comes to that type of data. And you can also create custom reports. So these 9 reports that I mentioned, they are derived. So it's built using the Drupal's plugin system. So if you want to add your own reports, you can very easily do that. I have an example further down in the presentation where we're looking at it. We can look at a custom report. But it's really simple to add a custom report. And if you add a custom report, then the Audit Export module discovers it. Now that's available for you as a tool. It's available to your AI. It's available to Drush. So you can just worry about, or you can focus on working on a single data. So if you have a commerce site that's very custom and you have a lot of custom functionality that you want to be able to pull reports for, and basically maintain that, keep those reports up to date, you can build a custom report for Audit Export. And then as you run your reports, it's just pulling that data to it and includes it with everything else. So then it exposes it as a tool, so it's now in your AI or available to your LLM. And there's a few ways to export it. There's like CSV exports as well as a remote host, JSON. The simplest way is to looking at it through the UI of the site. You can download it as a CSV, but we'll take a look at all that. But, sort of the anatomy of the module. There is the Audit Export module itself. So that if you were just to go use Composer, and install the module, and you were to enable Audit Export, this is actually a sub-module. I went forward. Audit Export Core is the main module. That's the main functionality, and that is sort of the core functionality. So if you didn't want to include any of those 9 reports that I was talking about, and you just want to use your own reports, you don't need to enable Audit Export. Most people, if they would enable Audit Export, they would expect it to come with those reports, so that's why it's there. There's the Audit Export tool module. This is a sub-module that you enable. It enables the tool API integration, so that turns that on. And then there's Audit Export Post, and that module, it's pretty simple. Just whenever the reports run, or whenever they run and get processed, it can post that data somewhere. This is really helpful for that documentation piece. So if you have this installed on a few sites, or multiple sites, or a fleet of sites, every time these reports run, which could run on cron, it could run via Drush. Since it runs on Drush, and like say if you're hosting on Pantheon, if you're going from dev to test with Quicksilver hooks, you can have it run then. Like if you don't want these reports running in production. You can have it only run on multi-dev environments. You can only have it run when you're deploying from test to live. There's a lot of flexibility there. But it gives you the option to take that data, post it somewhere remotely, aggregate it all in one place, and now anytime cron runs, you have this data that's being up to date. So I have the latest fields that are the field types that are being used. I have the latest permission set, and it gives you a way that you can just aggregate that in one place and do things like create a dashboard or do more with it. And it's kind of up to you at that point. I provide the functionality to do that. It also supports a plugin module, so if you want to create a custom module that defines how all that runs and where it goes, it's very easy to do that too. So running an audit, there are 3 ways to, actually a bit more than that now. So 3 main ways. Through the UI, which is the common way of doing it. Is it going there? I press a button. I probably did. I was trying to stand away from it. I think the wind from my hand motions knocked it over.
It jumped itself.
Yeah, it's really excited about audits. All right. So yeah, there's 3 main ways to run the audits. We're going to be taking a look at a few of them. Actually, I think everyone we're going to look at except for cron, just because you kind of get the idea after a couple of examples, but it runs on cron too. But from the UI, so you see it, you can use it from the interface of Drupal, and the same audits can be run from Drush, so from the command line, and then with cron too. So like if you schedule every time cron runs, you're able to run the modules or to run the reports as well, and you can turn some of these off. So if you don't want to enable the field entity report from running every single time, you can turn that off and target specific ones. So the demo, this is the fun part. So this is getting out of my full screen here. And I stood up, through the help of Claude, I stood up a quick Drupal Camp Asheville 2026 site. For whatever reason, I thought it was in August. So again, a point to, you always want to double check the information that comes out of it. So that's a good thing. But for the purpose of the presentation, it's fine. It doesn't matter because this is just lorem ipsum content that looks nice. That's kind of branded, kind of. So and I've already installed the module here. So most of us know how to install Drupal modules. This is not about that, but it's take my word on it. It's pretty easy, standard, just like every other module that you would turn on. When you enable the module within your configuration section, your reports section, there is this Audit Export section that it adds. And these are those reports that I was referring to. So this is content type audit. Let me make this a little larger.
Yeah, I was about to ask you to do that.
That might be a little too large.
No, this looked good. Thanks.
Good, perfect. All right. So there's a content type audit, the content types that are on your site. There's the active users and roles audit, taxonomy, modules that are enabled, blocks that are enabled, views audit, so being able to understand about your views, how are they, is this, in Drupal 7 there was sometimes you would see a lot of views that came with custom modules and it wasn't in the, it wasn't managed via the database, it wasn't managed from the views UI. So on the Drupal 7 version of this, there's going to be a little bit more about sort of where it lives. It's still in the Drupal 8 version, and most of it is in configuration how it works now, so it's kind of all consistent, but Drupal 7, because yeah, this works all the way back to Drupal 7. Site report, so this is similar to just like a status report. I think the biggest one, the one that I find myself using the most is that entity field audit. Just being able to know what fields are on all the entities of the site, where are they coming from? Is this a custom module, a trim module? What's the data set? Or what's the cardinality? There's a bunch of information that comes down the field, so it surfaces a lot of that in the menus. So taking a look at some of these, I'll start at the top. There's the content type module. So this is the basic Drupal site. So it's got article and page. Those are out of the box content types of Drupal. With this highly custom site, I've added 3 more content types: a camp session, a camp speaker, and a camp sponsor, and added some basic nodes. It gives you a count of the nodes. It lets you know how many are unpublished versus published, as well as the enabled displays. So in this case, it's the default display, but it will pick up any custom display modes that you have there and what's enabled for that specific content type. If we go to the next one, it was the users and roles. This is the one where I was saying if you go to like the Drupal users permissions page, something like all permissions, if you're going through the compare the two. So looking at the permissions page, we can see that the administrator has everything, and then you have to kind of go through it line by line, and you typically would with line 2, but in this case, you really have to read each option. One of the things, as you should, but we've done some work with just cleaning this up. So for this particular role, or that's not the right one. What is? I'm sorry. So these are for the modules, but it breaks it down for the roles up top. It gives you just a high-level list of what those permissions are. So at a glance, you can kind of get a lot of information about the permissions. You don't have to kind of go through it and parse it deep down. You still have the ability to. It doesn't override anything with the permission system, but the module itself just provides a quick way to glean some information from the permissions there. I'll jump because most of these are the same.
I'm sorry, but the screen that we were looking at?
Yeah.
That's the report?
Yeah, so this is the report itself. This is the data. So this is the report itself, and if we were to run the report, I've already run these reports, so it's populated. But yeah, so this is, when I just ran this report, actually I haven't run this one yet. So it comes back with my user counts. So you've only got one anonymous user, but authenticated user, how many content editors, how many administrators do I have? It gives you a user count there, and then it looks at the permissions and sort of breaks down what each role has, and does it in a condensed, sort of compact way. So that way, when you come to this page, you don't have to kind of go through line by line and sort of aggregate. Well, what does this role have? What check boxes are checked? When you start adding a lot of modules, a lot of roles, that user permissions page can get really unruly.
Yeah.
And there's FPA. There's a bunch of other modules out there that address certain aspects of that. But for this particular report, I'm just sort of aggregating that into a more what I think is an easier way to aggregate
Just basically to give it a scan.
Condense it, exactly. Yeah, you just condense it. And so then most of these are the same. It's like modules that are enabled. It gets the current version, the latest release, so you can kind of get a bird's eye view of available updates that are for a site. A lot of this information there already are reports within Drupal that handle this. But it just sort of brings it in one place, adds some tooling around it, and then adds the mechanism to take that information and then deploy it somewhere like via the remote post module, or if you're using tools like Claude or ChatGPT, being able to connect to it like via the MCP module, then exposing that directly with the LLMs. So you're not having to necessarily connect the entire site to it if you want to. You could just connect the MCP module and these tools, using the governance that's already built into Drupal, and then being able to get that out. So you don't have to provide Claude with full and database access to your DDEV environment. You can just go through and use this, just with the data that you need, just with the data that the modules are providing. So it can be a little bit more secure way of using LLMs with auditing your site. And yeah, the entity field one, because most of these are similar. I'll look at the views one in a moment too. But these are the entity field audits. So in this case, we're looking at the actual entity itself. So this would be like the content type, or I'm sorry, the custom entity that I created. So like AI files versus like comments versus files. Again, I very quickly had Claude build the site, so it may have went a little overboard with some of the field types and entities that I created, but that was kind of the point, is that I wanted to see a mess of a site and be able to still have it be able to pull information out of that, still make sense of it. So there's the entity itself, and there's the field, the bundle. So this would be like your content type. So you have your content entity, and then like your page would be the bundle, then the field name, the type of field, the module that is being provided by that. So like this AI file, that's being provided by the AI module. And some of these are core modules. Block content, that's just a core module. And if you were to have a contrib module that provides a custom field, you would see it here, listed here too. Looks into other things. I'm going to scroll into the top so we can see the labels. But if it's a reference field, what type of entity is it referencing? And what kind of bundles is it referencing? So what data is it referencing in that? Yeah, so that's useful, as well as the cardinality. Is it a single reference? Is it a multiple field reference? Or is this field a single or a multi-field value? So a lot of information that's available here in the entity field report. And from there, I guess the other one, the views audit, just takes a look at all the views on the site, sees where they're stored. So are they in the database? Are they turned on? Are they enabled? What displays are there? Is there a display path? Module name. So if it's a view that's coming from a module, it can be provided there. The way that views works in modern Drupal is a little different than Drupal 7. This module section is a lot more helpful for older legacy stuff like Drupal 7. And again, this module was intended to assist getting folks off of Drupal 7 onto modern Drupal. So the initial version, even though it came out well, I think Drupal 11 was almost out when I originally wrote this module. I started with Drupal 7 because I wanted to be able to have something for these Drupal 7 sites to get them onto modern Drupal. So Drupal 7, I put out the module and released it well past the end of life. So I got some looks for that when I would tell friends. I was like, releasing a Drupal 7 module, like why? But yeah, trying to get folks onto modern Drupal.
And there's still 6 sites out there too.
Yeah, I know, right? I considered it was a strong consideration. Like, should I include Drupal 6 too? And multiple days. I mean, I really thought about it.
Wow.
And
I hope you're kidding.
no, I'm actually not. Because I actually supported one of those Drupal 6 sites while I was working on it. But I opted not to. Takes me back though. It's like nostalgic. I was like, I like that little nostalgia going back to D6. But some of the settings of the module, we'll take a look at this real quick. By default, whenever you run these reports, it will just save it in the database. You can have it save it to the file system. This will just give you the option to take that JSON or that CSV data and save it directly to the file system. It gives you an option here of which file system. You want the temporary file system, the public file system, the private file system. I usually stick with the temporary, but public's a good option too. Private is another good option. I don't have private enabled for this site, so that's why you don't see it there. But whatever file systems you have, if you had S3 enabled, S3 would be as an option here. So that's another thing. Enable processing on cron. It's not running on cron now. Now it is running on cron. Well, actually, you have it run on every cron if you want to, or you can turn that off and put a schedule to it. And the remote post functionality. Now, I don't have a place to send this to at the moment. I used to in prior presentations. I did. It's just I forgot to turn on the DDEV environment before I left the house, and it's I can't remember the ports that I need to tell that into to go turn it back, or that's tell now. That's cool. To SSH into my box to do this. So I don't have a great place to show you that aggregation of things, but. If you would like to see that, I gave this presentation at Drupal Camp Florida earlier this year in February. At the very end of that presentation, I did show that. I did show like a single dashboard where I was pulling all that in. So if it's something if you're interested in, I would definitely say to go look at that Drupal Camp Florida video from earlier this year. You can see that dashboard, what it looks like, or at least my vision for how that worked. Because the idea is that with this module, being able to collect this data, having it go into a single place, now I can create a dashboard that lets me monitor security updates, that lets me kind of be that one-stop shop for documentation. Somebody wants to onboard to a site, they can go to this one location and see all the sites that we manage. So if you're working with an agency that manages hundreds of sites, this could be pretty useful for you. And that's mostly it for the configuration. The UI is pretty simple. Taking a look at Drush. Wow, that's really small. Hey. And now it's line breaking. Is that? Okay, let me just clear. I'm like typing in all caps. Hilarious. That's probably wait here. Let me. We're gonna get into Claude too. I want to show you some stuff there. Get my prompts ready to go. Some log files here. And let me pull that. Does that make it any easier to read? Probably not, eh? It's pretty small.
Well, and the transparency doesn't help.
Yeah, right, a little less transparent, huh? Let me see if I can't change this in my settings. Do appearance. It's been so long since I've changed this. Where is the search trims? Appearancy, yes. No, I misclicked. Okay. That didn't change a thing. Okay.
Go maybe the terminal right next to it.
All right. Well, I'll just deal with the line breaks. I think this will work too. Does that make it a little bit easier to read? Here, well, let me actually put some text on the screen. So there's the. It's not very good. But you get the idea. There's a list command, so you can list out your reports. You can see the last time that they have run. I'll just hand wave this a little bit. You can't read much. The very end lets you know the last time it was processed, when it last ran, the module that it comes from. So this would be like if it lists the module. So if you had like a custom module that had custom reports, it would show up there. I don't have any custom modules right now, so everything is just Audit Export. But that's what it goes for. The description of the thing, like what this report's doing. If you want to have some grouping with that, like commerce or larger groups, then just the name and the ID. But you can run these from here too. So like in this case, it's Audit Export, or if I don't put the all tag, it'll give me a list of like which report would I like to run, and I could select any one of those. Or if you want to run them all, you can just do that too. And I'll go through each one, run them, process them. And if you had like the remote post module enabled and configured, at this time it would be going out to your making the post request to that remote site to aggregate that data. Okay, so I did mention the tool module. So one of the things that the module does is that it I won't go through the whole process of providing the prompts or like sending the prompts and waiting for them to come back. I've got a list of prompts. I can show you what the prompts are. We'll take a look at what they are. But I just kind of wanted to show you the results here. Can I make this larger? That's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay. So let me just close this for a moment. Go to the top. I'm going to make this larger. Okay, so this is the report. Actually, before I start here, once you enable this, and this is more of a matter, if you want to get to this point, you would need to install the AI module and then the MCP module. Those are the two sort of dependencies you would need for Audit Export to get to this point. You would need to set it up. You may or may not need to set up a an API key. In this case, I'm using this Claude Desktop, so it's able to connect to that and just sort of use my account for like my normal Claude account for this. But once you have the MCP module enabled and turned on and working as expected, Audit Export via the tool API exposes the tools that are available from the module to that. So those tools now become available to you within anything that connects to MCP. So Claude Desktop, Claude Code, Cursor, Codex, with ChatGPT, there's a lot, and pretty much everything supports the MCP protocol now. So what you're able to do are things like, now we'll just take a look at. I'm just going into my connectors here, and this is a list of all the tools that's available from the MCP module. I purposefully didn't install a bunch of other stuff. I just installed the AI module, so there's some tools that are coming from AI, from the AI suite, but most of this is going to be from the Audit Export module. They all list under other tools, so it kind of like gets lost in the list, but most of mine have Audit Export in the name somewhere. So like you're able to, in this case, you can clear past data, queue up new export or queue up new audits, get information about the audits, run the audit, and then each one of these. So these gets, these are all derived. So if you were to create a custom module with your own custom report, it would also be available here for you too. So you don't have to worry about, you don't have to think about creating a tool, the tool module integration. You don't have to think about any of the additional logic there. You just kind of focus on, let's just create a custom report for Audit Export, and by doing that, makes it available as a derived tool, which comes in here, and now that data that you've built from this custom module is just available to you. Like if you want to get really precise with the information that you're pulling out of Drupal, and making that available to your LLMs and getting very specific, without having to rely on the LLM to figure it out, and having to worry about hallucinations or it kind of going off the rails, or even just how much tokens it's using. Because in order to determine, like what entity fields are there and what modules are there, there's a lot that has to kind of go through in order to do that. And that takes tokens, that costs tokens. And the more you're doing that, well, one, the larger your context window is growing. And then because of that, there might be extra information in there that might not be exactly what you're looking for, but it's the prerequisite to get to the answer that you're looking for. So in this case, it just shortcuts a lot of that. Here are the fields. Here's everything. Here's where it comes from. Here are the modules that are involved. Here are just the tools here. So like each of these reports, get blank report is the derived report. So those 9 reports that we looked at are just available here. And then some other ones like being able to export into a CSV, listing what plugins are available, and this is AIF. This is kind of getting into like some of the AI suite modules. So looking back at Claude, I'll try to make this smaller so it's a little easier to read. Can everybody read that okay? Good, okay. And these are just basically 3 sort of example prompts that I provided. In this first one, it is using the MCP server Drupal connector. I took the default name for the MCP server. I probably would change it to like Drupal MCP or something, but in most cases I would do that. But this is just sort of default. List every tool that's available, and this is just wanting to highlight the tools that are available from Audit Export. And in this prompt, there's some for discovery, and this is just sort of like what's available for me to do using this module. Pretty high level. So like discovery, there's some execution. Talks a little about the tools, so being able to like run the reports, how to use them at a high level. Then, this is sort of like an overview of what's available for you. The second prompt, here's the derived tools. So like the pre-built reports that come with Audit Export. These are just how they would look into the system. So like they're all derived, and then these additional, like the ones that come pre-packaged are here. And they kind of explain what they're used for. And there's just some maintenance stuff like being able to clear the reports and that. The second prompt is using the connectors, or using the connector, run the tool, run the export list to show what is available. So in this case, I'm getting the information out of the site. I'm pulling it out of Drupal and kind of giving me a high-level overview of what data is in that Drupal site. So in this case, it's looking at site audit, and you can see the data as it comes back, but then it formats it to where provides some differences here, and looks at this last one, taking that data and then what are you going to do with that? In most cases, you're creating a document to deliver to a client. It could be that you're using that for then creating a presentation. It could be a lot of things you're doing with it, but being able to pull that data out and display that into a document. Let's go full screen on this. In this case, you would probably use a skill, put your own branding to it. This is just, I asked it to produce a site audit. I didn't really give it any more context than that. It was just very basic, so it's what it thinks I mean by a site audit. And also based on the data that it has available to it in that context window, which actually works pretty well. Again, I would clean this up, polish it, always review everything. But I have noticed that since using this module to produce these types of reports, it's a lot more accurate than what I would use or get out of just using Claude or just using ChatGPT. And it's cheaper too, token-wise. And it's just a high-level report, and I feel like we've probably seen a lot of these. It's just a document that talks about the site, technical architecture, content types, module inventory. Talks about what modules are out of date. I just installed everything this morning, so everything is up to date. But it'll flag out of date versions too. Front end comparison, so looking at the different displays and views that are enabled. So it's a fairly detailed report, and again, with no guidance on what a site audit is. If you've done site audits before, which I'm sure most of us have, you can just take your original report, provide that to the AI as context, and then it will try to match your existing formatting based on the data that it has here. And just kind of scrolling through this, there's a lot of information here. And again, if there's other information that you're looking for, that's where the custom audits come in. You can create your own custom audit. It makes it available to Claude just as easy as it does anywhere else, and you can go from there. So yeah, that's the AI and the tool API integration. So creating a custom audit, I know that's going to be difficult to read. I don't think I can zoom in. Yeah, I can't. But it's using the Drupal plugin system. So you just create a custom module. All you need is a YAML file, and then you would place this plugin in the location it needs to be in, which is, you can see here in the path, but it's just the Audit Export plugin base. And then from here, it's really simple. I mean, there's a annotation declaration. So you basically go through and define what that plugin will be, give it a name, give it a label, description. There's a data type. So there's flat versus cross. 99% of what you'll be doing is a flat report. So if you think about this traditional spreadsheet, I've got a header column or a header row and then data underneath, that's flat. A cross report is where you have multiple data. So we looked at the user roles and the counts. So it listed the user roles at the top, and then one row had all the counts of how many users were a part of each role, and then it went into permissions. So that's a cross type. Far less common, but there's some flexibility as far as the display of how you can display those reports. And then just the identifier, the grouping, and if there are any modules that particular report depend on. So I've got some custom ones that I've built for e-commerce. So if the commerce module is enabled, that's where the dependencies come into play. And then once you do this, there is really three functions that you need. There's the Oh, the main class, that is where you'd be defining your headers. So like what the headers for that. You can do a little bit of data manipulation there. I mean, nothing's preventing you from doing a lot of data manipulation there, but you would typically be working with data there if you're doing a cross type, if you're trying to like look with the user counts and the user roles, being able to like add counts. So you might add a little bit of logic there, but most of the logic is going to come into this last section, this process data, but prepare data. So prepare data is what content do I want to work with? So like these are my content types, or these are my commerce orders, or these are the user objects. Now once I have these user objects, how am I processing all of those? That's where that process data comes in. So it's really quick and simple too. You can grab one of these reports, give it to ChatGPT or Claude, and just have it go to town with it, and it works really well for being able to create custom reports. And it feels like every month is getting better and better. So I've got on the module page, which we'll take a look at that in a moment too. There's a link to some custom GPTs. They're a bit dated. So back when custom GPTs were like the hotness, this is like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I created some custom GPTs for that, and it just basically has this built in. So if you can go to it, you don't have to worry about providing examples as much. It's just I want a custom report for commerce. I keep using commerce, but commerce orders for example. But yeah, once you have it enabled, then it becomes a derived tool, and it's available within the UI. It's available within Drush, to Drush. It's available to the tool API, to Claude, all those other places, without having to do anything else other than just creating this plugin. We've already talked about the tool module, but yeah, this is the submodule for connecting it with AI, Drupal MCP, remote post. We sort of touched on that, but once we have that data, being able to send it somewhere, aggregate that, this kind of gets back into that documentation discussion. So, once we have that data getting into a centralized place and then creating a dashboard, that's kind of what I had in mind for it, was being able to kind of create a centralized dashboard for everything. Another thing, WordPress plugin. It's also Drupal camp. So we talked about all the Drupal stuff, but there's also a WordPress plugin for this too. Feature parity works the exact same way as the Drupal module. So if your shop also works with WordPress, it's one tool to sort of standardize everything around. So yeah, works with WordPress too. Feature parity. So it's like everything exactly the same. You're not using Drush, you're using WordPress WP CLI and their APIs, but under the hood it's the same thing. The reports are a little bit different just because the data that's in WordPress is a little different than what's in Drupal. So you're doing things like advanced custom fields as opposed to like custom content types and stuff. But yeah, so thank you. Any questions? We're right at time. So
Good question.
yeah.
This looks a lot like the site audit.
I'm sorry?
This looks like a lot like the site audit module.
Yeah.
And so I saw that you linked on the project page. What's the difference?
There's the remote post functionality. At the time, I don't think Site Audit had tool module. I believe it does now. I haven't followed it since then. Okay, so that would be another one. I know it didn't. I wasn't sure if they had added it since then.
Yeah.
But there are some similarities. So with this first class Drupal 7 support, feature parity between all Drupal 7 to modern Drupal, WordPress thing, it really isn't a thing in the Drupal ecosystem, but being able to have one tool for everything is another, I feel like, valuable benefit there. And I'll link to the module too. So it's definitely one I would recommend checking out. They are very similar. They do similar things. Slightly different approach on how you're going about doing it, but yeah, because my ultimate goal is just being able to get folks off of Drupal 7 onto modern Drupal, and if one works a little bit better than the other ones or is closer to what they're expecting, then that's just them being a little bit closer to modern Drupal. So that was the goal.
I was gonna say, and also, going on one question. One, this looks like super useful for some stuff we're doing, because I'm writing a lot of these custom reports right now.
Yeah.
It seemed like they would integrate with this well. One question too. So there was one part you mentioned about the fetching and then the processing the data.
Yeah.
Sometimes we work with really big data sets that you can run into memory limits and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Is there any type of batching or similar approach with the prepare and process data?
Not currently. I have run into some issues with very large. It depends on the data set. Very, very large data sets. Now, I've also run this on sites with, I mean, dozens of content types, hundreds of fields, and millions of nodes, and it works well for like. So it does work well, but I mean, there's a scaling issue I think with every solution that you have. I mean, there's still a point of failure. Not many. I've worked with some fairly complex sites with it, but it just comes down to what you're using it for. That's definitely something I want to look into though, because it has come up occasionally, and I usually find ways around it. So at the moment, and then I'm like, I'm going to fix that, and just never get back to it. So it's.
Yeah, because like sometimes we drop right into like the database abstraction API and just be like, okay, like let's just the database directly.
Yeah, I mean you can like index your tables and things too, or
and index it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of ways around it, and it depends on what it is, but sometimes I've gotten those arounds too.
Does MCP expose those functions inside of audit like automatically, or do you have to like do a little extra code?
Oh no. So once you enable the MCP, the tool module, MCP, that is, there's nothing to like turn on with it. Well, I take that back. I do have the Audit Export tool submodule. So once you have the tool module enabled, you have MCP enabled, the AI modules, like the dependencies enabled. To get Audit Export to work with those, you just turn on the module.
Okay.
You do that, and then it takes all those endpoints and functions and just exposes them as tools.
Cool.
And it's derived. So if you have custom plugins that have custom reports, it just gets picked up in that process.
Oh, cool.
So. Yes, sir.
More of a comment or prompt than a question, but I've been doing a lot of this stuff, and this reinforces something I want everyone to understand. Dear God, static analysis to your AI. Don't make your AI waste cycles and money figuring stuff out. Do it on a regular basis in an auditable way and stick it in code. You can drag these things, you can drop these in your Git repository.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
Never. Yes.
Yeah,
That's all.
exactly. That's like the exact.
Just a plea to, like,
Yes.
if it can be deterministic, you should do it once.
Right. You don't want to.
Don't churn over and over again.
You don't want to waste the tokens and spend the time doing that, or in just the extra time. I mean, because like these are valuable tokens, these cost money. I'd rather be using the tokens on something that the modules and the deterministic, the scripts and stuff cannot do, or it's much more difficult to do, or much more dynamic to do. You know, it can get that static. I usually refer to it as like static context, being able to build that context package and with static data that can be reproducible. You're not having to worry about. You still need to worry about hallucinations, but it's far less. I mean, your one-shot accuracy grows up quite a bit once you start building solid context. And this module allows you to do that. So, I mean, it allows you to quickly do that. And if you need to extend that to other parts of your site that I didn't think about, I'm sure there's lots of stuff I didn't think about.
Which is, again, why he has a plugin module, so it's like,
Bingo.
that. And you're exporting this stuff as like standard JSON or CSV. And the other thing that I'll point out is, since he's doing that, you can write your own tooling around that output.
Yeah, and that's where the post comes in.
Hey, now that I have this JSON, what else can I do?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's where the remote post or the remote post functionality comes into play. So if you go down to here, remote post, we enable this. You give it a name, give it a URL of where you want to post to. There's some basic information around it, like if you want to have some authentication there. What's a timeout request? You want to verify SSL. Debug mode, so include some more data. There's a lot of functionality there, and that's a plugin too. So you don't like how I did it, you can overwrite the whole thing and do it yourself. So yeah, that's it. I'm a few minutes over time, so I really appreciate everybody for hanging out, and yeah, enjoy the rest of Drupal Camp Festival. Thank you.
Yeah.